With 3 successful games under its belt, Super Smash Bros. Was highly anticipated for the next generation. However, it wasn't just one game, but 2 that were being made simultaneously. An expected console version, but for the first time as well, you'd even be able to take the game on the go. Shortly after finishing his latest game, Kid Icarus Uprising, series creator Masahiro Sakurai returned to make this, and this time not with HAL Laboratories, but with Bandai Namco. Despite being 2 separate games, the games shared the development and were identical in most ways, and because of that, various elements were changed, altered, and even cut due to one having to follow the other game's technical limitations. So today on Cut Content, we'll explore the beta unused content of Super Smash Bros. For Wii U and 3DS. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the subscribe button and hit the like button too to further support us and keep creating new videos. As per usual with Smash Bros. Development, the roster gets evaluated and changed, and this game is no different. First of which being 3 characters that were actually being worked on but dropped mid-development. The first of which being the Ice Climbers, notably missing from this Smash Bros. Game. Originally, the team had them built and functioning well in the Wii U version, but when it came time to making it for the 3DS, they had problems. The problem stemming from controlling 2 characters at once. Imagine 8 of these wandering around on a 3DS! Another cut character was a character from the game Rhythm Heaven, an odd choice, but what was found in the data was an unused emblem from the game, indicating a fighter was being planned. Supposedly, Industry Insider claims it was the Chorus Kids, a pair of 3 this time. Now again, imagine 12 of these running around on your 3DS. I can see why Sakurai dropped these. Now note, this next one is already technically playable, but acts like an alternate costume. This being Elf, the protagonist of Pikmin 3. In the final game, you could switch to using Elf instead of Olimar, kinda like a costume. However, internal documents state that they had plans for him to use Rock Pikmin, which would mean he was being considered for being a separate character at one point. Now, while these were characters that they indeed made but removed, Sakurai did consider a few more, but never went as far as hard coding them into the game. The first of which being the big space dragon Ridley. The problem that Sakurai had was that he had a hard time getting Ridley to fly properly, thus relegating him to boss status instead. Chrom from Fire Emblem was also set to appear originally. However, being that Sakurai couldn't find a way to make him too distinct from Marth or Ike, he saw Fire Emblem Awakening's other protagonist, Robin, as much more unique and worth adding instead. He did still appear in his final Smash though. A very niche character, Takamaru, from the game The Mysterious Muramasa Castle, was considered too, but due to how niche he was instead relegated to assist trophy status. Hayachi from the Tekken series was even considered. Would be fitting since the team that worked on Tekken was making the game. He was dropped as they couldn't figure out how to implement his moves into the game. He did appear eventually as a Mii Brawler costume via DLC though. Now in terms of DLC characters, Steve from Minecraft was considered as early as 2015 even, according to Minecraft production director Daniel Kaplan. However, with how close it was getting to the Switch, he may have been delayed for the next game, and when deciding which Final Fantasy character to put into the series, Sakurai had thought of a few different characters actually, including Bartz from Final Fantasy V or Terra from Final Fantasy VI. However, he stuck with Cloud in the end, as he is the most iconic character from the series. But even with all these cuts, several made their way into the next entry with a robust moveset that fit them well. Except Hayachi, of course, who instead was cucked by his son, and found within the data of the game are references to several character announcement remnants of characters that were in Brawl but cut here. These include Ice Climbers of course, Pokemon Trainer, Squirtle, Ivysaur, Wolf, and Snake. It's possible that they were considering bringing them back when development started before cutting down the roster. For the characters that did survive Sakurai's Russian roulette, there were many elements to them that went unused. We'll start off with the unused custom moves, a feature that stayed exclusive to Smash 4 and never appeared in the sequels, whereby variations existed of moves with different properties. Which in this case, it looks like they were planning for a third variation for several moves at one point. To begin, Mario's flood attack was to have a version that would deal electrical damage. Imagine if combining that with that pushback. Several of the up specials were also to have variations at 1.2. Both Ike and King Dedede's versions, for example, would hit the ground slower. The version in the data offers no damage though, but might be that they are incomplete. Many of the projectile specials also were set to have another variation too, such as Mega Man's or Bowser Jr.'s. However, it is incomplete as the model for the projectiles aren't there when shot. Palutena was also supposed to have more variations too, but they are too corrupt to see. There is also a variant of Ness's PK Thunder that crashes the game when activated. Now, the interesting one is Mewtwo. Normally, DLC characters don't have custom moves, but they did try to experiment with Mewtwo before dropping the idea, possibly due to time constraints. He has several variations and all of them could be accessed without hacking the game through a glitch. First, his neutral custom move has him lunge to the right when uncharged. Charging, however, has him fire something, though the model is missing for that attack. But fully charged, he freezes, clearly unfinished. Partially charged though, he fires a wave of confusion it seems that does nothing. His side special, however, lets Mewtwo grab others and walk around with them better than Kong ever could. The up special, however, crashes the game, but with his third up special, he can perform Disrupt as much as he wants. His down special, however, slows the game down, Bayonetta style, and lets him deliver an ass whooping. This being one that really was a missed opportunity in my opinion. Now this isn't a custom move, but Lucas has a lost property with his forward air attack, whereby he normally would do 6% of damage if his attack doesn't hit perfectly, but was disabled for the final game, and he only can do one strong attack here. Lastly, while not an unused custom move, Kirby initially may have been able to use custom moves when absorbing enemies, as he has voiced lines for Palutena's custom moves.
Explosive flame! Bakuen! Heavenly light! Ten no hikari!
Either that, or they couldn't decide what Palutena's neutral special would be. Now, several cut animations exist for the game's several characters. First off, with Smash 4, the ability to glide was removed, and thus Meta Knight and Pit couldn't glide any further. However, found within the data are several animations for Meta Knight, Pit, and even Dark Pit, where they were planned to be able to glide at one point. I mean, considering you could do crazy stuff like this in Brawl, Sakurai may have been hesitant to bring it back. Rosalina also has an unused down smash animation, a likely earlier one that looked less expressive compared to the final one. Roy also had an unused up smash, looking very similar to Marth's, unlike the final one that has a unique animation, likely from a time when they were trying to make him still a direct Marth clone. King Dedede has two unused animations pertaining to his final smash on ground and in the air. The animation indicate a concept of where if Dedede missed his final smash, this animation would play. The final game, however, always has it look the same whether he hits or not. Speaking of final smashes, Little Mac's Big Mac form has two unused animations too on ground and air. These are for using the KO punch, something that Giga Mac can't use as that goes away upon transformation. Possibly they were considering letting him still do it here, but was seen as too broken. Now, an unused animation from Brawl returns and stays unused, this being Diddy Kong's laughing animation for when someone slips on his bananas. Zero Suit Samus in this game was changed to using more physical attacks, but her old forward smash animation can still be found in the data, though not attached to her model. For Wario, there is an animation for after using a fully charged Wario Waft, whereby he would have landing lag at the end when back on the ground. However, instead, he just has his normal falling animation that doesn't lead to any landing lag in the final game. Another leftover animation from Brawl are Olimar's Pikmin chain used with his up special. In this case, the Pikmin would link up and rescue Olimar, but instead this was replaced with winged Pikmin. Kirby also has an unused mouth animation in this game where he opens his mouth up in this creepy manner. This may be a carryover from Brawl when Kirby would move his mouth all the time. However, since the character bones have been rearranged, Kirby now has this creepy smile instead. Lastly, with Bayonetta, she was set to have 4 other winning animations too, as seen with these names in the data. But the animations aren't there when loaded, and thus we don't know what they look like. Now there are also a number of unused models and graphics in the game. First, going over to fighters, Captain Falcon has a set of face textures that was to showcase his eyes. Normally this can't be seen in game due to the visor, and in fact they didn't even bother mapping his eyes in. Maybe his visor was originally going to be more transparent. King DDD also had early textures that are more based on his Brawl variant. In this case, the fake shading from Brawl was removed to let the game's normal mapping do the actual work. Marth's sword also has the texture from Brawl, a lot of carryovers from Brawl today it seems. Here it was supposed to slightly show the end of the blade. Now for Roy, he has an entirely unused model of what is presumed to be an earlier take. This is still quite similar in appearance to the final games, but its geometry is positioned slightly differently. His textures are of a lower resolution, and he's missing his cape entirely. Ike's eruption move originally also had red flames, a lot like his Brawl counterpart, before being changed to blue flames, to better represent his game's name in Japan. Pit also originally held his bow in a similar manner to the way he did in Brawl before it was changed. Kirby's hammer was using its old model from the previous games as well, and Villager's firecracker canister had a different design from the final games. Now Rob was also supposed to have changing expressions like other characters depending on the situation. However, this isn't completely unused, as it simply doesn't load when character intros are shown. But if it is a match with no intros, they load. Therefore more a glitch than anything. Kinda ironic for a robot to glitch in hindsight. But this isn't it for poor glitchy Rob. It seems he has a set of alternate textures that showcase cracks on his body. Fighter damage was a concept that was being considered for Brawl at one point, but was dropped. Potentially they considered bringing that back here. Another leftover from Brawl is a model of Luigi's hat that has an actual low resolution texture underneath his cap. But to tie the fighters up, the Mii's had a separate stock symbol for male and female, but it was replaced with the weapon of choice instead by the final game. Now next up, we will look at assist trophies and trophies. Several changes were made to them, including a few that were removed. The well-known one is Tharja from the Fire Emblem series. A leak from the ESRB's copy of Super Smash Bros. For 3DS came about that showed a shot of Tharja being a trophy in the game, but alas, was removed. This was likely since the ability to pen might have shown a little too much skin for her that might have led to a higher age rating for the game. The Rayman trophy had a minor difference originally too, having a more sleepier look to him as opposed to the very high appearance he has going for him in the final game. But going on to the assist variety of trophies, let's talk about Skull Kid. What is interesting is that Skull Kid underneath his mask is actually rendered with his wooden face and beak. But what is also interesting is that his textures even include the texture for his flute, something that the Skull Kid in Majora's Mask doesn't use. Not sure what they were thinking here. Now, Prince of Sable from the game, the frog for whom the bells toll, has a hidden sword in his sheath that you can never see. Normally, he simply transforms and beats up the player, but I imagine he was originally going to use his sword in some capacity, like in his artwork. Now, the next few trophies are found within the 3DS version, and are early versions of existing trophies. These include the Golden Interior Trophy, which is on an angle in the 3DS version, and has its base merged with its model, the Fiend's Cauldron looking only slightly brighter originally, the Wii Fit Trainer having a very blocky thigh originally, so this is peak performance of not skipping leg day. And in addition, 4 unused trophy categories exist in the data too. These include Touch Generation, Nintendogs, and Tamagotchi Life. You know, the casual lineup of Nintendo games. The 4th, however, is the Ice Climbers, which, as we know by now, just probably moved at least 5 frames a second on the 3DS. Now, the game has a horde of cut graphics that seem to reference additional features and modes that may have been cut. First are a number of unused boss art icons. Originally, these would be used in stages with bosses to display their health likely, which unlike the final game, there is nothing there at all, and is a basic guessing game on their health. Even Master Hand's other forms have art made for them. The most interesting of these are an unused boss art for the Dr. Mario viruses. These likely were meant to appear as a boss fight as such for a presumed cut Dr. Mario stage as well. Even seems some nameplates were made to go with these as well. These two making sense. Not sure what to make of these other four though. I guess sandbag makes sense to have one. But what is bomb referring to? A bomb? A literal bomb? And while random and question mark here are just out of place. Now in addition to these, it seems some of the bosses including Master Hand, Crazy Hand, Both Hands, two other forms of Master Hand, and Metal Face have what is a character select screen art. If this is going by tradition of previous Smash Bros. Games, the developers may have had a debug select screen whereby they could play as these boss characters and test out their functionality. In addition, there is also 3 unused stock symbols for bosses. One for Meta Ridley, which goes unused as he simply goes back to his regular form and thus has no use of the Meta Ridley stock symbol. Metal Face had a stock symbol too that would appear for defeating him originally as well, but was cut eventually. The Dr. Mario virus also had a stock symbol, a placeholder one at least, but eventually cut. Now, while on the topic of bosses, it seems Petty Piranha was also set to be a boss too, as it has a list of unused animations here. No model to render them with, and these are different from those used in the Boss Fight 4 Brawl. It's only present in the Wii U version too, meaning it was going to be a version exclusive boss. But this was likely scrapped early since there are no other remnants left of him. Now within the game exist demos for previous Nintendo games that one could play. However, there are 2 title cards found for what are presumed to be 2 cut demos, one being for the original Super Smash Bros. 64. The other is of Fire Emblem, Shadow Dragon, and the Blade of Light. This still exists in the Japanese version, but stays unused in the English version because, of course. Now, what is strange is that there are stage select icons for single player stages, such as Smash Run, All-Star Mode, Trophy Rush, Home Run Contest, and Target Blast. Either they did in some ways want these to function in multiplayer too, or the developers may again have had a debug menu to quickly access these stages and test them. There are a few unused stages that were removed from the final game, but still have some data pointing to their existence. For one, the virus Dr. Mario boss that we witnessed earlier likely had a stage of his own, as stage bosses all have a level based on their very game. In the data, there is also a file called mark_30_brain training that would point to the existence of a stage from the game Brain Age. I can't imagine this stage being full of random questions being written out and being able to platform as such, with Dr. Kawashima's head being the stage boss. A file called Plankton exists that may point to a stage from the game Electroplankton that was to appear in the game. Potentially the level Hannonbow from Brawl was to return here, but was cut. And finally, a file called Diary was found that may refer to a level based on the 3DS app Swap Notes, as it has the name Diary in the Japanese name of the app. As well, existing stages have some beta content to them too, a lot of them found via old screenshots of the game during the Pick of the Day updates. One of these include the 3D land stage. While looking duller, it had a different stage layout, with several falling blocks, a higher warp pipe, and different placement of the center question block. As well, it seems the Flyman enemy found on the Megacent level originally was set to use a 3D model instead of the flat 2D pixel art that we got, likely changed as this was taxing the 3DS. The boxing ring, however, was a lot simpler with its background, but as well, based on the HUD seen here, this looks to have been from a very early stage in development, as the Mario and Link HUDs are using their Brawl HUD design as placeholders. The Miiverse stage had a slight difference originally, as seen in this old placeholder icon found in the data, with the background being darker initially. Also, it seems the timer on Trophy Rush had a longer time than the normal 2:30 time here. Probably was too easy is why the change. And it seems within the Mario circuit, blue toads were also set to appear as racers, as their texture is found within the data of the stage. Within Windy Hill Zone, none of the animal friends were there originally too. As well, within the Reset Bomb Forest, image of Reedy that appears has a pair of roses on her hair before it was changed. Along with that, 2 of the 3DS's exclusive stages, Mushroomy Kingdom and 3D Land, have an empty folder for them present in the data. It might point to the idea that they were originally going to be in the Wii U version too. Either that, or because of the shared development, some folders might have floated between both versions. Along with those Mario stages, it seems a Super Mario Land level was also being made, but was reworked into the Dreamland level instead. Now, what is this Sakurai bias, I wonder? Then again, it seems there was also going to be a Kirby's Epic Yarn level, but because the Yoshi's Woolly World stage was being made, they decided to convert that level into the Great Cave Offense in the end. On top of that, there are two pieces of text found that state, "Unlock the Gamer stage, beware the Mother's gaze. Unlock the Temple stage, time to fight way above the clouds." These two stages are normally there from the get-go, but originally it seems they were set as unlockable stages. Speaking of the gamer stage, there's a sticker texture that is hidden in one of the platforms on the stage, something not possible to see in normal gameplay. In relation, Gower Plain also has a part of his mountain that goes underground, which also cannot be seen in normal gameplay. Now in relation, it seems Smash Run was also set to have a co-op mode set in the 3DS version originally, but once again, the limitations of the 3DS prevented this from happening. On top of that, it seems they want to add more special rules for 8-player Smash 2, but that never happened. Maybe time restraints, hard to say. Now, as per tradition here too, a ton of unused audio is around too. Going through them with Marth first, in previous Smash Bros. Games, when Marth does a counter, he says a Japanese line along with it. In this one, he makes a generic scream, but in the data, all three of his usual counter lines are there. Both male and female corn have a loud yell for when they are launched, but it is unused and instead they stay silent. I suspect someone forgot to program these in for them. Peach also has an unused sound effect that seems to be intended for the Light Veggie custom move, which normally doesn't have its own sound effect. And Pac-Man has a sound effect straight from Galaxian that was meant to be used for what is probably a cut result screen victory pose. Now, this isn't cut from the Japanese version, but the English version lacks Mewtwo's Japanese lines, as they are overwritten with generic grunts. Same ones used in Melee. The next few lines are leftovers from the old entries and imported from various games when needing placeholders. Rosalina with a playful yell from Mario Kart 7. Wario's groggy moan when his final smash ran out, leftover from Brawl, with him being silent in this version, and the Sheik transformation sound from Brawl, which goes unused since the transformation was removed from this game. The narrator also has some unused lines. These include everything from Round 1 to Final.
Round 1, Round 2, Round 3, Round 4. Final round!
This was likely intended for the tournament feature that was to come out with the game's launch, but was delayed, and eventually the narration was redone for those, with these being the unused ones in the end, as well as announcements for the Mii Brawler, Sword Fighter, and Gunner.
Mii Brawler, Mii Gunner, Mii Sword Fighter.
As opposed to him just saying Mii in the end. And one last one from the narrator being
Clear!
Aside from these, a large number of the Wii U sound effects do appear in the data of the 3DS version, but that likely is due to the shared development of the games. I mean, I don't expect that they attempted 8-player Smash on the 3DS if they were even too scared to even let the Ice Climbers run around on it. And with sound comes music. Not too much here, but a unique game over theme exists that never goes used. Likely was meant for classic mode, before the usual track plays. And exclusive to the Japanese version, however, is a remix of Ashley's theme. It was still in the data and eventually included in the next entry's international release too. And so Super Smash Bros. For the Wii U and 3DS launched and became a strong success across both consoles. For the first time, people were able to meet up and play Smash Bros. On the go, and on the flip side, the series kept evolving on console, becoming a cultural phenomenon with massive hunts for the very amiibos that launched with the games too. While many ideas were cut here, including several of the characters, many eventually found their way into the sequel, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. a game I plan to cover eventually. So hit the subscribe button, for I'll plan to be back with more Smash Brothers and other games cut content soon. Hit the like button and comment below on what was your favorite piece of cut content in this game. So everyone, thank you for watching.